Hey everyone, and welcome back. We're going deep today into fundamental rights in the Indian Constitution.
Oh, excellent.
And this isn't just for, legal experts or people studying for the UPSC exams. This is really for every Indian citizen.
Absolutely.
And I think it's going to be a fascinating discussion.
It is. It really is. Because, these rights, they're the bedrock of our democracy.
Yeah.
And they impact our lives in more ways than we realize.
Yeah, I think a lot of times we take them for granted.
We do, yeah.
So we're going to unpack not just what these rights are, but also, the limitations and the real impact they have.
Yes, absolutely.
Did you know there used to be 7 fundamental rights?
Oh, wow. I didn't know that.
Yeah. Or that your right to move freely can actually be restricted.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
So get ready for some serious aha moments as we break it all down.
That is interesting because India actually has a more elaborate set of fundamental rights than many other countries, even the U.S., which is often seen as, a pioneer in this area.
Yeah, that's a good point.
That's so.
Okay, so let's just start with the big picture here.
Sure.
What exactly are fundamental rights?
Okay.
And why are they such a big deal in the Constitution?
Well, imagine a world where the government could just do whatever it wanted without any checks and balances. That's where fundamental rights come in.
Okay.
They're like a shield.
Okay.
Protecting individual liberties against state intrusion. They ensure we don't end up living in a dictatorship.
Right.
And that's why Part 3 of the Indian Constitution, where these rights are enshrined, is often called the Magna Carta of India.
Wow. Okay, so they're like the ultimate rule book for how the government can and cannot treat its citizens.
Exactly. They establish a framework for a society where individual dignity and freedom are paramount.
Okay, I'm starting to get the gravity of this, yeah.
Yeah.
So how many of these fundamental rights are there?
Currently, there are 6 fundamental rights.
6.
Guaranteed by the Indian Constitution.
Okay. All right, let's dive into them one by one.
Sure.
What's the first one?
The first one is the right to equality.
Okay.
And it's covered in Articles 14 to 18 of the Constitution. And it basically means that everyone is equal in the eyes of the law.
Okay. That sounds pretty straightforward, yeah.
Yeah.
Does that mean no discrimination whatsoever?
In principle, yes. Discrimination on the basis of religion, race, caste, sex, or place of birth is strictly prohibited.
Okay. Okay, so everyone has an equal shot at, say, getting a government job, for example.
That's the ideal, yes.
Okay.
But of course, the reality is more complex.
Right. What about, like, reservations for certain backward classes?
It's a great question, and it highlights the nuances within this right. The Constitution recognizes that historical disadvantages faced by certain groups require affirmative action to create a truly just society.
Okay.
That's where Articles 15 and 16 come in. They allow for provisions like reservations, ensure representation, and opportunities for those who have been historically marginalized.
So it's not just about legal equality on paper, but also about addressing those historical injustices. Okay. This is already making me rethink some of my assumptions about equality. Okay, what's the next fundamental right on the list?
The right to freedom.
Okay.
And this one is a biggie. It's covered in Articles 19 to 22 and includes freedoms like speech and expression, the press, assembly, association, movement, residence.
Wow.
And even the right to practice any profession.
Wow, that's a lot. So basically, it's like all of our basic
liberties.
Right, you got it.
Yeah.
This right has been instrumental in shaping India's democracy, allowing for dissent, debate, and the flourishing of diverse ideas.
Okay.
But here's where it gets really interesting.
Okay.
These freedoms are not absolute.
Oh.
They can be subject to reasonable restriction.
Wait, so I can't just go around saying or doing whatever I want?
Think of it this way. Freedom without responsibility can lead to chaos.
Okay.
The state has a duty to ensure public order, security, and the protection of other people's rights.
Okay.
So, give me an example.
A classic example is the fire in a crowded theater scenario.
Oh, right.
You might have the right to free speech, but you can't just yell fire in a crowded theater and cause a panic.
Okay, that makes sense. What about things like phone tapping?
Absolutely. The right to privacy, which includes protection against unreasonable intrusion into your personal communications, is now recognized as an intrinsic part of the right to freedom under Article 21. This was a landmark judgment by the Supreme Court that solidified the importance of privacy in a digital age.
Yeah, very relevant in today's world for sure.
Absolutely.
This is really a good point for our UPSC aspirants to take note.
Absolutely.
Like understanding case laws and how they shape these rights is crucial for the exams.
You're absolutely right. A good understanding of landmark judgments can make all the difference in crafting strong answers.
Okay, great tip. So we've covered equality and freedom. What's the next fundamental right that guarantees our liberties?
The third one is the right against exploitation, outlined in Articles 23 and 24. This is all about protecting the vulnerable and ensuring a basic level of human dignity.
Okay.
It prohibits practices like human trafficking, forced labor, and employing children in hazardous environments.
So things like bonded labor, for example.
Exactly.
Yeah.
This right recognizes that certain forms of exploitation are inherently unjust and have no place in a civilized society.
Good riddance. All right, what's the next right we're diving to?
Right to freedom of religion.
Okay.
This is covered in Articles 25 to 28. Now, this one is particularly interesting and often sparks debate.
Okay.
It guarantees freedom of conscience, the right to profess, practice, and even propagate any religion.
Okay.
But, and this is important,
Okay.
it's subject to public order, morality, and health considerations.
Hold on. So does that mean you can believe whatever you want, but you can't necessarily DO whatever you want in the name of religion?
Precisely. The state can regulate activities associated with religious practices if they infringe upon public order or the fundamental rights of others.
Okay. Okay, that makes sense.
So, for instance, practices like forced conversions or those that endanger public health can be restricted.
Okay, so you can't have one person's religious freedom trampling on the rights of others or causing harm.
It's a delicate balance,
Right.
like walking a tightrope
Yeah.
between individual freedom and societal harmony.
That's a great analogy. All right, on to the next right. What's number 5?
Number 5 is the right to cultural and educational rights.
Okay.
Articles 29 and 30 safeguard the right of distinct cultural groups to conserve their language, script, and culture.
Okay.
They also guarantee the right of minorities to establish and administer their own educational institutions.
So if a community wants to set up a school that teaches their
Yeah.
language and traditions, they have a right to do that.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And the state cannot discriminate against these institutions when it comes to providing aid or imposing regulation. The aim is to ensure that minority communities have a fair chance to preserve their heritage and educate their children in a way that aligns with their values.
Okay, that's crucial for a diverse country like India.
Absolutely.
Okay, so we've covered 5 so far. Equality, freedom, protection from exploitation, freedom of religion, and cultural and educational rights. What's the final one that completes this set of safeguards?
The 6th and final one is arguably the most powerful of them all.
Okay.
It's the right to constitutional remedies, enshrined in Article 32.
Okay, this one sounds intriguing. What makes it so powerful?
Imagine your fundamental rights are violated.
Okay.
What can you do? Article 32 is your answer.
Okay.
It gives you the right to directly approach the Supreme Court if any of your fundamental rights are infringed upon.
Wow, so it's like a direct line to the highest court in the land to seek justice.
Exactly. The Supreme Court has the power to issue various writs, like habeas corpus, mandamus, prohibition, certiorari, and quo warranto, to enforce these rights and provide relief to those who have been wronged.
Okay, that's pretty impressive. So it makes all these rights seem a lot more real, not just words on paper.
Right.
Before we move on, there's one thing that's been bugging me. You mentioned earlier that there used to be 7 fundamental rights.
Ah, good catch. You're talking about the right to property?
Yes. What happened to the 7th one?
Well, the right to property, as initially conceived, proved to be quite controversial.
Okay.
It clashed with the government's efforts to implement land reforms and social welfare policies aimed at redistributing land and resources.
So if the government wanted to, say, acquire land for a public project, the right to property could get in the way.
Exactly.
Okay.
It created a hurdle in achieving broader social and economic justice.
So how do they resolve this?
Well, after much debate and deliberation, the decision was made to amend the Constitution in 1978. The 44th Amendment Act removed the right to property from the list of fundamental rights.
Hold on. So what's the difference between a fundamental right and just a regular right?
That's a crucial point. While both types of rights offer protection, fundamental rights have a higher legal standing.
Okay.
They are enshrined in Part 3 of the Constitution and enjoy special safeguards. They can be directly enforced in the Supreme Court under Article 32.
Right, the right to constitutional remedies.
Exactly. Legal rights, on the other hand, are typically